So here we have Jenny.
Thank you. It's been a year since my nephew was murdered by the sheriff's deputies. He had schizoaffective disorder, so he had a mental disability. His social worker called the police, called the sheriffs, because he was suicidal, and they came out and they killed him. Well, then my sister tried to go to her dying son, and the police threatened to arrest her if she would go to her dying son. Then they searched her house and took away computers, phones, things that she's never even gotten back at. And they did not officially tell her son was dead. She found out that he was dead on the 11 o'clock news. Simon was 33 years old. This is the kind of kid Simon was. He was at Dog Beach one day. He saw a man having a seizure. He called 911, and while the man was in the hospital, my nephew took care of his dog until he recovered. My nephew was a good kid. He was no angel. He had problems. He had a mental disability, and a mental disability is not a crime punishable by death. He was shot 5 times in the chest. Now, my family has been affected now twice. The sheriff's deputies took my nephew Simon last year, but in 2011, on March 5th, my granddaughter Jasmine Carrasco lost her father, who was shot 9 times in his bed. Mark Carrasco. And he was a hard worker, an electrician, a good father to his 2 daughters, and a good friend to those who knew him. I'm going to let Jasmine say a little bit about her father.
Sorry, sometimes I laugh to keep myself from crying, but I'm glad to see that all of us are here to support a good cause from all these tragic losses, and it's terrible. It's sad to see that everyone else is suffering just like my family suffered because of my father's death. My family is completely broken apart, and it's left myself and plenty of other people with terrible depression. And I'm glad to see all of you guys here, and it really makes me happy to see that there are good people in this world, and to not let the negative, just, what do you say, Mom? You say like, don't let the negative overcome the positive. There, sorry. So yeah.
Mark Carrasco, unfortunately the police had the scene and there was no one else there. His aunt had called the police on him and said that he had a knife. He had no knife. He was lying in his bed. He bled out into his mattress because he hadn't even gotten out of his bed, shot 9 times. And there has been no justice for Mark, and there has been no justice for my nephew Simon. So our family has lost 2 people, and San Diego PD and the sheriffs. And there still hasn't been any justice. And so today, I'm going to let my daughter speak. We come together to try and end this.
I just want to say really quick, Mark's mother, Elisa Rodriguez, couldn't be here today. Simon's mother, Sherry Hubble, couldn't be here today, and I just want to tell them both that I love them tremendously and to keep being strong, and we're all here to support one another.
Okay. This is a painting made by my daughter. We want to auction it off, and we want to donate any monies from it to the families who need to bury their loved ones.
Talk about it for 5 seconds. So from 1980, from Border Patrol, jails, sheriffs, Escondido, Carlsbad, San Diego Police Department, every single branch of law enforcement that have killed somebody. That's the total since 1980, and this is only 1980. Since 1913, there's only been about maybe 30 cops that have died, and I will say that, I will clarify that. That includes from natural deaths and being off duty. Please welcome Lara Guzman. And this is from a stolen life back in 1986. And the pains are still there. So it's very important that y'all hear everybody out. Doesn't matter if it was yesterday, doesn't matter if it was 30 years ago.
Hi, my name is Laura Guzman, and I lost my father, Andrew Luis Guzman, to police brutality in 1986. I stand before you tonight to share my story of the aftermath of losing my father to police brutality when I was 7, to hopefully illuminate a universal language that I hope can transcend race. The language that comes from children who are suffering from the horrible trauma of losing their father to police violence. I recognize that simply because of the color of my skin, this somehow translates into what is known as white privilege. And for me to be silent about racial inequality is to be on the side of the oppressor, and this I will not do. Yes. My story is that after police killed my father, they sued my mother for their pain and suffering, and won. They won. My mother had to pay the sheriffs that killed her husband money. I wrote this poem called Dear Chalk Outline, in which I am writing a letter to a friend turned foe. The yellow chalk that was the last thing that I saw of my father. Dear Chalk Outline, the first time we met was the night of January 9th, 1986, the night my father was killed. It's been so long since I've seen you. I'm terrified I will forget you. You are my father's last embrace, the goodbye I never got to say. Somehow, if I can get to you, you can lead me to him and erase what happened that terrible night when the light inside of myself, my sister, and my mom was ripped out of our hearts and extinguished. The sound of my father's voice woke me up that night. Quietly, I went over to my bedroom door. It was open a crack, and I strained to see out in the blackness. I was scared of night, of the blindness it welcomed. As I pushed open the door, it voiced its opposition by sighing a somber squeak, like a parent eager to protect his child, but giving in to their emerging independence. I moved towards the elegant staircase to my left, the polished mahogany railing directly in front of me. I looked up at the antique chandelier hanging over the curved staircase. It was 100 years old, a survivor. It was so beautiful. I wish that I could escape into its buoyant beauty, its crystals like tiny shards of the sun. I could hide there almost invisible, and I could be forgotten in the delicate light it hesitantly cast on the room. Suddenly, the sound of a doorbell ring pierced in through the darkness. I leapt out of bed to see my mother open the door to let 2 policemen in, actually sheriffs. She ascended the stairs quickly and ushered me into my sister's room. And then I heard a sound I cannot remember. I've searched my memory ever since. That lost sound, the sound that changed me forever, the sound of gunshots that struck my father's heart. That same heart that helped him work hard as a migrant worker and then helped him realize his dream of becoming a doctor. That same heart that gave patients his home phone number. The same heart that instructed me to feed animals first because they were helpless and to take care of helpless people before myself. The next sound I heard after the gunshot was a gut-wrenching howling that seemed to belong to some kind of unformed being. I realized that this haunting scream was produced by my sister, a cry I never want to hear again. It was as if her soul was being torn from deep within her, and it was screaming out in agony as its attempt to fight off imminent death. The police left you there, my friend, the yellow chalk outline. I wished I could somehow turn you into that colored chalk that children draw pictures with on their sunny, safe sidewalks. I was there the day most of you disappeared. My mother, with her auburn hair spilling over her shoulders, made you go away with a sponge. I love you, outline, but that day I was that sponge, finally useful as a tool to erase this portrait of her pain. Her suffering seeped into me as if it was my own. The memory of watching her on her hands and knees, scrubbing the chalk outline, is like a dark, dark nightmare bearing the echo of a scream that permanently inhabits my soul. There are no words, no sounds I can use as a means of communicating the overwhelming guilt I felt for my mother. I stood there in my vast uselessness, my eyes cloaked in desperation, could only stare. When no one was around, I used to look for remnants of you across the surface of the violently cold maroon tile. I used to curl up next to you and beg for you to have been my chalk outline and not my father's. One day I could not find you, chalk outline. I panic, the demanding thud of my pulse vibrating in my ear. I search desperately for you, begging you not to leave me. And finally I find you lying helpless atop the cement, and I collapse in a ball next to you. It's been 30 years since we left that house, but I still see you, chalk outline. I see you in the tears of Cameron Sterling as he cries, "I want my daddy." And I see you in the voice of a little girl telling her mama, "It's okay, I'm right here with you." And the desperate pleas of a man pleading for his life, saying, "Please don't shoot." But now, my old friend, it's time for you to go. It's time for you to be driven out from our society, away from the countless African American and Latino victims. Because you see, my friend, you hold inside of your yellow chalk the memory of police brutality, the existence of it. Our broken hearts will only mend once you're gone. And I want to dedicate this to all members of Black Lives Matter and the groups here tonight. After 30 years of silence, you have set me free and given me a voice. Thank you so much. I love you.